Nathaniel, thank you for letting me know that I was still on mute. So I'm gonna back up a couple slides real quick, just back here to assumptions. So and I'll go pretty quickly because I want to get through these real quick. So I'm so sorry about that. I set it on mute for a moment and I forgot to unmute it. So thanks for letting me know, Nathaniel. So I'm recording this for playback later, although the first part will be pretty quiet. You're welcome to send me an email for the slides, and I'm happy to send them to you. Just checking some assumptions. You research your market. You've got a book up in Amazon. You already have that metadata, and you can control it. So this isn't a how-to. This is a what to do. I'm the WaveCloud Chief Marketing Officer. This is not a sales pitch. We offer services to help with a lot of the elements that we're talking about, but essentially we're talking about how to help you be successful as an author. And we define success as earning enough revenue to pay back all of your production costs and your marketing costs when you brought your book to market. And once you've done that, of course, every book after that is pure gravy. And that's what we want. That's what we want to see authors do. And, of course, one of the best ways to do that is to keep your costs as low as possible. So the theme of a lot of our webinars and a lot of our advice to authors is how do you keep your costs down when you're producing your book. In case you can't stay, or perhaps you already left, but in case you can't stay, because life happens, and it happens here, it just happened to me, right? So I want to give you our final recommendations. I'll come back to these same 7 recommendations after we talk through the details at the end to reinforce them. But here are the key things that we ask everyone to do on their Amazon book sales page. So number 1, upload a professional-looking book cover. And, you know, there are 3 or 4 tests there for your book cover. We'll talk about what those are. There's also some interesting information you need to know about book cover formats when you upload, and we'll take a look at an example of what happens there. Social proof. You absolutely need some proof on your book sales page that other people have already enjoyed your book, implying that the person browsing that page might also enjoy it. I tell authors you probably don't want to do any outbound marketing. You don't want to try to drive traffic to your Amazon site until you have more than 20 reviews. So don't launch a BookBub campaign or Pixel of Ink campaign until you have some social proof in place that your book is worth purchasing. I talk to a lot of authors about how to price their book, and my recommendation, I'll never tell an author what they should price their book at, but I'll always suggest that they first take a look at their marketing goal and they optimize that price to figure out, to match their goal. Are they trying to maximize downloads or readers or revenue? When it comes to your book description, you know, do you have a solid log line, a solid hook that your readers who are browsing your sales page will look at and say, gosh, that sounds really interesting. I better buy that. And not only is that content good, that 1 or 2 paragraphs, but have you put it up there using the HTML tags that are available in the Amazon book setup process? And I'll show you what that looks like. I'm not going to show you how to code HTML tonight. I'll show you actually a website where you can go and get that done for free, but I want you to take a look at that and see what the difference it can make for you in your book description. When you're picking categories, when you upload your book, we recommend that you pick 2. Of course, you want the main category or subject area or genre where your book is supposed to go. And the main one is, of course, where all your competitors' books are. You know, sort of answer the question, people who like my book also read books by, I don't know, Lee Child, for example. So I'm going to go put my books in the same genre that his are. But also we suggest that for your second, because you get to choose 2, for your second Kindle ebook genre, that you pick the smallest category that's still relevant to your book that you can dominate. So the chances are the smaller the category, and I'll show you what I mean by this, the better your chances of being able to climb to the top 100, the top 20, the top 10. Also, a lot of authors skip over the keywords section. And even when they enter keywords, they're entering keywords and not key phrases. So if you take a closer look at the keyword section of your metadata in your Amazon book setup page, you'll see that you can actually enter more than 7 words separated by commas. You can actually enter quite a few. And the key here is to pick keywords, especially for nonfiction authors, that are driving people to find your book. We'll talk about why that's important a little bit later. And the last thing that we recommend is that if you don't have an author page, get one done. And I don't mean your author anchor site, which of course you probably have already, but make sure that you're engaging on Author Central at the Amazon author page. uploading your trailer, linking out to your blog, linking to Twitter, and engaging in the discussion area with the people that purchase your book. So I'm going to go ahead and I think we've already done the surveys. I think we were ready for the third survey. All right, how did we first hear about this webinar? I'll pop this one up real quick. We're very curious about how we're getting the word out to the people that are attending the seminars. I'll be curious if you can just let me know real quick, how'd you hear about this? What brought you here tonight? We've been doing some Facebook ads, some Google ads, some posts on Twitter and LinkedIn, and we've also been talking to everyone who'd call in. If you just take a moment and vote, I'd appreciate it very much. All right, it looks like our voting is almost done. I'm going to go ahead and close out the voting and show the summary. So it looks like the people in the marketing group that work for me will be pretty happy to know that their emails are effective, but it's also good to know we're getting some word of mouth out there, so that's also good. Great. So let's move into why does this matter? Why are we even spending 55 minutes doing this tonight? And my first and really only answer is your point of sale presentation. That is the place where your book sits there right next to the cash register, if you will, on the Amazon.com book sales page. It affects your book sales. I know that seems obvious, but let's talk about sort of why and how. The traffic that you drive to that page, the traffic that Amazon drives to that page is absolutely precious. You don't want to waste it. Every single visitor could be converted into a purchaser of your book. And you should know that the basics of improving your page, it's going to require some work. It's not something, most of authors I talked to, they said, well, it took me about 5 minutes to upload my book and hit the word publish. Publish now on my Amazon upload, my KDP upload page. That's true. It probably did take about 5 minutes, but honestly, you probably need to spend a couple of hours cleaning up some of that information and going back and doing it again, which is very easy to do. The bottom line is that a better book sales page creates a better conversion rate. A better conversion rate, first of all, yes, it creates more book sales, but it also creates more book sales because of your book sales. And what do I mean by that? Amazon, like Google, wants people to come to a page and take action. In Google's case, they want you to click on an ad. In Amazon's case, they want you to buy something. So the more people that buy something from your page, the Amazon engine is going to take notice and say, well, I'm going to send people to that page more often. So let me figure out how in my sales rankings I can say, well, if you bought this, you might like this book. If you bought this, you might like this book. You want your book to be recommended along with the other books that are displayed for readers in your genre. And so the more sales you have, it becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. So now we've got a question. This would be interesting to see sort of on the call. I think you all be interested to know, what's the status of your book? Have you started writing it? Are you already done? Are you in editing? Maybe your book's already up on the Amazon page, and I'm talking about your current book. What's the one that's driving your interest today? If you would, just take a moment and vote and let me know, and I'll share that with everyone else as well. Okay, I'll close out in about 5 seconds. All right, the voting's in. I'll share that. So this is good. This is good news. I hope that you find this valuable tonight. It looks like about 3/4 of you already have a book out there in the market. That's fantastic. Okay, so let's get down to the specific recommendations and what we say and why. So I talked before about 3 or 4 sort of rules that your book cover has to pass. And I'm not a book cover designer. I have a lot of strong opinions about book covers. I'm going to show you some examples in a moment. But these are really questions that you can ask yourself about your book cover and that you can use to help guide what I call the art direction when you're working with your cover designer. Now, maybe that cover designer is a friend. Maybe it's somebody you've paid money to. Maybe it's yourself. But let's talk about what those rules are. First, let's start with the 3 that are universal for both fiction and nonfiction. And the first one is you need to stop the reader's eye with an image, with something on your book cover that draws their attention up top left and gets them in the frame of mind, oh, I'm on a book page. This looks good. This looks interesting. Let me pay a little more attention. So you need an outstanding image sitting up there on the top left of your book page, and that, of course, is your book cover. So it's got to be something that's not bland, something that pops, if you will. I know that's a little bit of a cliche. If you say that to a designer, they're going to pull their hair out. But the bottom line is that's what you need. Also, you need to confirm your genre. So strip all of the typography off of your book cover. Take all the words away. You're left with nothing more than a simple book cover. Does it tell me this is a science fiction book? This is a romance book. This is a steampunk book. This is a Regency romance book. This is a book on losing weight. This is a book on better public speaking. This is a book on how to improve your vocabulary. So your book cover image itself needs to confirm the genre of your book. And maybe you've got a mashup. Maybe you've got multiple genres. Go for the primary genre, the one that's the most dominant in your book. And of course, throughout this presentation, I'll substitute genre and subject area. A lot of people like to use genre for fiction and subject area for nonfiction. And of course, I'll show you a list of those and exactly what I'm talking about in a few minutes. The third thing that your fiction or nonfiction book cover must do is convey your professionalism. So this is the composition. This is the typography. This is the, how readable is your thumbnail? Because these images can get pretty small, especially on mobile devices. When you've done your market research, you've probably looked into what are the dominant brands or the dominant authors and the common themes in your competitors' book covers. So there might be common images, there might be common colors, themes, there might be a certain amount of image quality or not, and you need to look at that and know the answers to those questions when you are doing your book cover. Because you may decide, hey, I don't want a basket of fruit and bran muffins on my weight loss book. Even though everyone else has one, I'm going to use something else. You have to at least know the rule before you decide to break it. Then there's one final rule for nonfiction authors, and that's that you must include your benefit promise somehow on your cover. It could be text, it could be part of the image, and the benefit promise is the why am I reading this book on weight loss? Why am I reading this book on spirituality? For a fiction book, the benefit promise is it's sort of what we all expect from reading whatever genre we read. It's escapism, it's entertainment, but for nonfiction, you need a more explicit articulation on your cover of your benefit promise. I'll show you some examples of that in just a moment. Also, I just want to point out one last thing. If you look carefully through Amazon, especially when you're researching in your genre, and you look carefully at the book images, you're going to notice some interesting things. One of the things you'll notice, and I'll show you an example of it right now, flip down to the next one. So here are 3 books. I happen to be running a science fiction book, so I thought I'd grab 3 science fiction book covers, and we could talk about them real quick. Now, none of these authors are Wave Cloud customers. We didn't do any of these book covers. The Atlantis Gene by A.G. Riddle, that's a self-published book. Shadow of Freedom, that's a traditionally published book by David Weber, a very popular science fiction author. And The Master by, and I can't read that name, we'll talk about how bad that is in a minute. It's obviously a self-published book. So the first thing I'd say is notice that the aspect ratio of these 3 covers is not identical. In fact, I would submit to you that the Atlantis Gene, the cover here on the Atlantis Gene, that's actually not the front cover of the paperback version of that book, because that is probably not a standard book ratio for a trade paperback or a paperback. But it doesn't matter, because all you had to do, all you were asked to do at Amazon was to upload a book cover. So, you can test the limits of, you can look at, what's the maximum file size I'm allowed? What's the maximum pixel size I'm allowed? The richer the image, the larger the image you upload, as long as you keep it under, I believe it's 5 megabytes for Amazon, the better your image will look as Amazon expands it and contracts it to the various thumbnail sizes that their S3 Cloud delivers when book sales pages are created on the fly. So just note that book cover format and the richness of the format and the aspect ratio, the height to width ratio that you pick is important. So let's take a look at these 3 books real quick, and let's just ask ourselves the 3 fiction questions. Do they have an outstanding or arresting image? So I would submit to you that the one on the left that looks like a submarine stuck in an iceberg, that's interesting. And I don't know if it comes through on your screen very well, but right above the submarine is a sort of a ghostly image with his or her arms stretched out to the side. So there's something interesting there. The Shadow of Freedom, you can tell pretty clearly by looking at this that this was a print cover that no one bothered to redo. They just sort of scanned it or took the JPEG of it and they put it up as the ebook cover. And I would submit to you that that this traditional publisher that published this book, all you have to do is look at the little red bug in the middle that says I think that says New York Times best-selling series. It's real hard to read that. You know, if you really wanted this to make that pop, New York Times best-selling series, you probably would have made that bigger, although you would have had to mess or cover up some of the images on this book cover. And of course, the third one, you know, I know that's supposed to be a science fiction book, but I could swear that looks like a piccolo. So that doesn't do a great job for me, in my mind, of confirming that the genre that book belongs to. So, you know, yes, do they confirm the genre? I'd say the left one probably, the middle one definitely. You got spaceships and an alien cat, and then the right one, I'm totally confused about what the genre is. Do they convey professionalism? I'd say the first one does. That self-published one does. I'd say The Shadow of Freedom, it conveys a traditionally published or published book. But the third one, the typography, you know, pure black with red, that's a very common choice by self-published authors, but with scripted title and very small scripted typography for the author name, it's not convincing me that this is a book that's been professionally edited and professionally put together and that I would enjoy reading it. It might be a great book. I haven't read this book. But the point is, you have to convey with your cover that you are ready to compete with traditional publishers who spend, let's face it, they probably spend $10, $20, $30,000 producing their book and bringing it to market when you add up all the editing time and everything else. So let's take a look at some nonfiction books just as another example, because this is about the things we're talking about today are for both fiction and nonfiction. You know, here are a couple of self-help books or diet books. And on the left, we have the Daniel Plan. Now let's talk about benefit promise. So 40 days to a healthier life. It's a little hard to read the benefit promise on the Daniel Plan, but it is there if you look closely. So the text is right there. So I would say, yeah, it shows its benefit promise, so that's good. Now I know why I'm going to pick up that book. The promise is that if I read this book in 40 days, I'll have a healthier life. Okay, I get it. You are why you eat. Change your food attitude. Change your life. So that's a picture of Dr. Ramani, and I'd say that's a good picture of the author. It's probably eye-catching, and clearly the benefit promise is right there on the front of the book. The third one, wow, I'm having a real hard time. I can clearly see that addiction is in the title, but the script makes it very hard to read any of the other words, the typography, any of the other words on the book. This book, I would submit to you, number 3, is probably going to have a hard time competing. So I just want to take a quick pulse of the audience. I'd like to know, who produced your most recent book cover? Now let's take a look at, if you just take a quick moment and vote, maybe you haven't finished it yet, or maybe you did it, you're happy with it, you're not happy with it, or you hired a professional graphic designer, or maybe you went all the way and you hired a professional book designer. While everybody's voting, I'll tell you this, I get a lot of authors who say to me, well, I've got a friend who's a graphic designer and they can make a great book cover for me. And what will typically happen is that they'll make a fantastic image. They make a great image or a great, something that really pops, but then they don't get the typography quite right or the composition quite right, and a professional book designer can typically do that for you. On the other hand, I've seen a lot of great book covers done by graphic designers. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing wrong with doing it yourself. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close out that voting. Let me show you what everyone else said. So it looks like graphic designers did about half the book covers, and the authors did about the other half. So that's fantastic, and you're happy with it, which is great. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Let's talk about the next item, which is social proof. So right after your reader comes to your book page and looks at your cover and makes a decision, a snap decision, about whether your book is worth considering. So let's say your book cover conveys all the professionalism required. The very next thing they look at, in fact, we can see this when we go look at the Amazon page, right? I'll take a look at one right here, which is, here's one right here. So here's In Her Name, Empire by Michael R. Hicks. And right next to it, so I look at this, and what do I get? Strangely enough, I get both fantasy and science fiction out of this cover. It looks like it's a little confused, but actually if you read this book, it has some elements of both. And then right after I look at this, I say, okay, that's a professionally produced looking cover. It's got pretty good typography. I might argue with the fact that having Michael R. Hicks in white on top of a white blade makes it a little hard to read, but I'll go with it the way it is. I go right over to the social proof. And the social proof is, what's my average rating? What's the histogram distribution look like? Not everyone's going to hover over the stars like I am right now, but so how many stars did I get? And how many reviews do I have? I would suggest to you that Mr. Hicks, with 410 customer reviews is knocking it out of the park and doesn't have to worry about this anymore. In fact, he's got so many reviews that getting the occasional negative review isn't really going to hurt him. Again, Mr. Hicks isn't one of our customers, but he happens to be a book that I've read and that I've enjoyed, and I'll talk about some other reasons why I picked him. He's done some very interesting things with his self-publishing career that I admire quite a bit. So we talked about the number of reviews, the average star rating. These prove someone else read this book and they liked it. And if you pick it up, you might like it too. So how to improve your ratings, how to get 20-plus reviews? Well, one of the first things I tell all of my authors is, you've got an ebook. Many of your customers who buy your ebook are going to be reading it on a tablet that also has a browser. And what do we know when we see a tablet that has a browser? That when there's a piece of text on that tablet and it's underlined and it's blue, we can infer that it's a hot link and it'll take me somewhere. So what I tell all my authors, and I'm going to jump forward a slide real quick, then we'll come back here, is I say at the end of the book, you should provide some hot links, some HTML links to your other books. So here's a book by another author, B.V. Larson, who does an outstanding job with this. He's written a book called the Star Force series. It's actually 8 or 9 books. And at the end of the book, he gives you a couple chapters for the next book, and he says, this is how you buy the next book. And so right here, if I had this book open on my reader, and I used my finger and I clicked on Rebellion, it's going to take me right to the Amazon page to buy his next book. And I did that 8 times in a row to get through all 10 books in his series. I think I spent $60 on this series, and it's a very effective a way to not only get them to buy your next book, and you can see what Mr. Larson's done here at the end of this list of hot links. He says, hey, go to my website, because what are you going to do? What's he going to do when you go to his website? He's going to ask you if you'd like to be updated on his next books and what's coming out, what's upcoming. Also, although he doesn't do it in this particular one, you can, if reviews are important to you, you can add a little excerpt at the end of your book that says, hey, if you enjoyed this book, it would really help me out if you could give me a review. Reviews are what, an honest reviews are what help other readers like you find good books, and it would certainly help me, and I'd appreciate it very, very much that you'd even think about doing it. Something in your words, and then you give them a hot link. So in other words, if I clicked on Extinction right here from this book, this is the back of the book called Extinction, I could go right to that page and enter a review. So back of the end of the book, HTML links are pretty valuable, and you can use them to help bump up your review count. Also, although there's not much you can do about it now, before you publish, make sure you professionally edit the book. We're going to be doing a seminar in January on, I think, January's book covers again, but in January we'll be doing in January, the second week of January, we'll do a seminar on how to get editing without paying an arm and a leg. But, the one thing that you don't want is to have your first couple of reviews be, well, I really like this book, but gosh, there sure were a lot of grammar and spelling errors. That'll turn off your audience so quickly, you should just take the book down, get it edited, and put it back up. Also, if you're having trouble, for example, you might be like me, you don't know a lot of people that read science fiction, and so if you're going to bring a science fiction book to market, you're going to have trouble finding friends and family that will read it, enjoy it, and give it a positive, honest review. There's a service. Now, we're not associated with them. We don't get any kind of affiliate business from them, but we like it, and we recommend it to all our authors. It's called bookreviewbroker.com. Now, it's not a sock puppet review service. They essentially do the work that you would do anyway to find out which Amazon reviewers, who are prolific reviewers, who review books in your genre, who are currently accepting books for review, and who will accept books from self-published authors. And they give you the contact info for that. They give you some templates for how they suggest you go and ask them for an honest review. Maybe you give them a copy of the book. And that's a way to help get your, it's a paid service, to help get your list of reviews up. And then, of course, after you do that, friends, family, Facebook, blog campaign, all the things that you would do normally. The one thing I would tell you, though, is if you are going to do the Book Review Broker, you probably want to tackle it before your friends and family campaign. There's some in the community of people that do book reviews, a lot of book reviews on Amazon. There is some disdain for the friends and family reviews, and sometimes you might get a reviewer that they see that and they'll give you a negative review just to prove a point. Okay, so let's move on to pricing, which after they take a look at your social proof is probably the next thing that determines whether they're going to want to buy your book or not. Now, there are three main pricing philosophies, right? There's free, and of course, this could either be as part of your KDP Select program if you decided to do that, or, and I'll show you a different way to do it, the way Michael Hicks does it, which is where you are looking for maximum downloads, or you've got a different strategy. You have a sampling strategy. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. Or you go for 99 cents, which of course is the lowest price you can set a book to intentionally on Amazon. And that's where your price is for maximum readership. You want to get the most people reading your book. You want to get the most reviews. You want to get the most people signing up for your email list, most people driving back to your website and showing interest in your other books. 99 cents is absolutely maximum readership. And then there's another price. And that price is somewhere between $2.99 and $9.99, and that's your max revenue price. So I'll show you in a minute sort of technically how do you get to this stuff, but let me just say this. Mark Coker, who I think is a very talented individual, he's CEO of Smashwords. I have a lot of respect for him, and every year he goes to the RWA conference, Romance Writers Association, and he gives a keynote address where he gives the benefit of a tremendous amount of quantitative analysis of all of Smashwords sales. In the past 2 years in a row, essentially what he said is 99 cents gets you the most readership, and some other price gets you the maximum revenue, and that price is going up a little bit. So that's very interesting. We'll talk about that in a moment. When I talked about free and how to set your book to free and when to make it permanently free, I talk to a lot of authors, and I advise that if you have a series, that you strongly consider making book one of the series completely free permanently. The idea is to get your readers hooked on your world, your character, your protagonist, your antagonist, your magic system, whatever it is, and get them excited about reading your next book. This works great in fiction, not as well in nonfiction, but if you want to set your book price for free permanently on Amazon, the easiest way to do it is to set it in there for 99 cents. Go to Smashwords, upload it, set it for 0, and get a few friends and family members to alert Amazon to the fact that your book is available for free at Smashwords, and they will move your price to 0. Whatever pricing philosophy you choose, match your current marketing strategy, right? Are you going for readership? Are you going for maximum revenue? Do you have a sampling strategy in mind? Go for, make sure that whatever you do matches your marketing strategy. Let's talk about the pricing power curve for just a moment. I don't want to spend too much time on this. It's a little bit technical, and I did, through my own mistake, start us late. So the pricing power curve. Book sales, because they're ebook sales, I'm going to limit this to ebook sales. Ebook sales tend to follow a power curve. In other words, the demand elasticity for ebooks, as you move from, say, a $20 price where you might sell one book to a family member, down to free, where as many people as you can tell about it who might be impressed by your book sales page would actually download it without paying you a dime. That looks like a power curve, and that's this curve over here on the left. And essentially what this curve is telling us is that there's probably somewhere in here where there's an optimal price. Now, your revenue maximization scheme depends on how your royalty system works, and in this case depends on Amazon. So, for example, if what these curves are showing us for this particular power curve, we'll talk about how the power curves are different for every book in every market and every genre, but this is showing us that if you price your book at 99 cents versus, say, $3.49, you'll probably get twice the paid readers, but you'll rake in 1/3 of the net revenue. So said a different way, if you price your book at $3.49 instead of 99 cents, you'll have half the readers, so you'll reach half the audience you would have at 99 cents, but you'll make 3 times as much money. So that's what the curve on the right is telling us. Where is the maximum amount of money that I can earn? And these numbers along the bottom, they're relative. So, at $4 I might sell X books, but at $2.50 I might sell 2X books, or at say $2.25 I might sell 1.5X books, but I might sell almost twice that. I'll make 1.5 in net revenue to me, but at say $3.49 or so, I'll make almost twice that. Now, this particular power curve, if it matters to anyone, follows an exponent of 1.025. And my point is simply this. your power curve will vary depending on your genre, depending on the competitiveness of your book, depending upon your reputation as an author. Your net revenue is driven by Amazon royalty bands and where you can price within those. As I mentioned, what your individual price elasticity curve looks like for your book. Fundamentally, sort of, skip all this stuff. At the bottom is what matters. What experiment are you running today? I recommend to all the authors we work with that you experiment with your pricing. You run campaigns. You keep track of what happens to sales, so that you can hone in on the appropriate price point if revenue maximization is actually your goal. I'm going to throw up our 8th survey real quick here. I'm curious about what pricing strategy you're using, and yeah, here it is right here. So I'm going to launch this one real quick. I'd love to see about what pricing strategy everyone out there is using, and it might be interesting for you to sort of hear what other people are doing as well. So if you would take a minute and vote, let us know what are you doing to get your book out there, and we'll probably be able to infer, your strategy. Are you doing a sampling strategy? Are you trying to maximize readerships of people that are paying? All right, we've got about we've got about 3/4 of the votes in. We're almost all in. All right, I'm going to close it out now. Let's take a look. So this is very interesting. Almost half of the audience, they're doing experiments, which I think is fantastic. That's what I recommend doing. I think 99 cents is a fantastic strategy, especially for debut authors. That's what I'll do when I bring my book to market. If you've got a great author brand and you're strongly competitive with traditional books, I say pricing up there. $5.99, the $6.99 level is good. One thing I do want to point out, though, that you need to know, in fact, if you happen to follow Digital Book World, there was an article about it today. Traditional publishers, this has typically been an area where there's a window of opportunity here for self-published authors. We can price our book very low without worrying about this giant infrastructure and these 7th Avenue addresses in New York City. We can experiment with our price in a way that traditional publishers in the past have been reluctant to do. It looks like their reluctance is fading. Now, it could just be the holiday season, but it looks like generally on ebooks, now that the price-fixing lawsuit is over, it looks like publishers are beginning to start to do more experiments with their book pricing. So, I would recommend that you, as quickly as you can, figure out the right strategy for your book and get pricing there, because the traditional publishers are beginning to close the gap on price experimentation. Okay, let's take a look at the next item. So we've talked about the book cover, we've talked about your social proof, we've talked about your pricing. Now let's get to the book description. So the book description is essentially should be the blurb that was going to be on the back of your book in the ebook store, especially for fiction. This should be your log line plus your hook. If you happen to read this story when you were a kid like I did, The Velveteen Rabbit, here's what the log line and the hook sounds like for the Velveteen Rabbit. Marked for death, along with his companions, a toy rabbit must learn to cry real tears in order to save himself from being thrown into a burning pit by the boy he loves. So, it tells me who the protagonist is. It tells me what the setting is. It tells me what the conflict is, and it leaves a question, right? Will the rabbit be able to cry the real tears and save himself from the burning pit? I want to read this story to know what happens, please. So it's important that if you're not familiar with the concept of a log line and a hook, do a little research on the web and go back and relook at your book description, because its content is important. We'll talk about its style in a minute, but it's very important. For nonfiction authors, you should be using your book description to establish your authority, to reiterate your benefit promise, and to throw in your unique proposition. Okay, so I'm going to lose 20 pounds in 20 days. How am I going to do that? Am I going to do that by watching TV? Am I going to do that without dieting? Am I going to do that without dieting and holding my breath? What is unique about your benefit promise? Very important. Also, I'm going to show you a good example of this right now. I want you to consider going and improving your book description. So we're going to take a quick look at Michael Hick's book description. So look, this is pure black text, white on black, mono font. That's it. That's all there is to it. And it's good. It's a good log line plus a hook. It gives us the conflict, the setting. It gives us the antagonist and the protagonist, and it leaves us with a question, right? So, but how much better could this be if you did a little HTML to it? So here's an example right here. Here's a book description that pops, okay? I got a big headline here. I got some little headlines here. I got some text that tells me about what's going on. You know, I would submit to you maybe this book description is too long, but it certainly is. It certainly does pop better than the other one. Here's another big headline. Here are some bullet points. Okay, so especially if you have a nonfiction book, you should be considering how to do some sort of HTML in your book description. Now, I'm not a programmer, don't know anything about HTML. I'm not really interested in paying someone to do it for me. How do you get that done? So the short answer is, if you're not familiar with it already, Author Marketing Club, I kind of like what they do. One of the things they have, and they've got you can join for free at their basic level, and go to their Marketing Club demo, their HTML demo. And I've got a link on here. I'm happy to send you the slides. But you want their Amazon description generator, and it'll let you take your current description, cut and paste it into their system, and then hit generate code, and they'll create the HTML code for you that you can literally cut and paste right into your Amazon KDP book description, and then when it refreshes, you'll have an HTML version of your book description that pops much better than it did before. All right, moving on to categories. So I ask my, if you're not aware of it, I ask my authors, do you shop on Amazon? Have you read an ebook? Are you aware that the ebook genres have a different taxonomy and genre and subject area layout than the book genres? Okay, not many people realize this, but if the column here on the left is for ebooks, the column here on the right is for books. And by the way, the column on the left, science fiction, there's about 60,000 60,000 ebooks in science fiction as Kindle books, and in the printed book version, there's like 120,000. So I find that very fascinating. So, for example, if I bring when I bring my book to market, it happens to be a first contact book. So remember what I said before when we were talking about at the very beginning. I said, I suggest that everyone pick two Kindle categories. One, the most relevant to catch the browsers, and two, the smallest relevant one that they could dominate. So, for example, I might want to put my book in alien invasion or adventure, maybe, or even space opera. I really think I'm writing a space opera book, right? So it's got 6,000. There are 6,000 ebooks in space opera, okay? And it might be hard for me to float up into the top 100, top 20, top 10 of space opera. But if I choose as my second category first contact, wow, there's only 568 books in there. With a decent marketing effort, I should be able to break into the top 100, perhaps even the top 20 or top 10. If I do a great job, maybe I can make it to number one. And then I can always say, hey, Amazon bestseller in first contact category, right? It's sort of like not quite as strong as New York Times bestseller, but here's what it does aside from being able to brag or claim, right? What it does is as you climb the ranks inside of a category, Amazon does more of a job of getting your book recommended to other users, other browsers. So finding a small category you can dominate is important. Later, when you post a print-on-demand version of your book, you're going to want to select a book category. You can decide whether you want it to be the same or not. I recommend that because, of course, your print version and your ebook version must be on the same sales page in Amazon. If they're not, you need to email the folks at Author Central and get them to fix that for you. But you might pick another one like Adventure or I might pick. So I picked Space over in the ebook. I picked Space Opera and First Contact, and over in the science fiction side, I might choose Adventure. And then I'm straddling 3 different categories, giving me the maximum visibility possible. All right, let's talk about keywords. These are often overlooked by authors. Actually, sorry, we need to go back. I want to get a quick sense here of. Nope, I'm going to skip that. We're run out of time. I'm going to skip that survey. So let's talk about keywords. So in your KDP book setup page, there's this little line, very small one, called keywords. And it says submit up to 7 keywords, or kind of also says phrases. Now, there's some rules about what you can't do, and you should look those up. But the bottom line is these are absolutely critical for nonfiction writers. So Amazon, contrary to sort of your popular intuitive belief, Amazon is the dominant search engine in the United States for products. When people want to know about the Husqvarna lawnmower model K2 100, they don't just type it into Google. Sometimes they do, but overwhelmingly they'll go to Amazon and type it in that little white search bar up at the top. So you've got to have the right key phrases set into your keyword slot in your KDP selection. So think about this as a search engine optimization exercise. Don't let any of them go to waste. Separate all 7 phrases by commas, but use them all. And the more specific you can be, the better it will be for you as a nonfiction author. Now, they're also useful for fiction authors. I put some examples down here of key phrases to use, right? And these happen to all, well, they're not all 2 words. Some of them are 3 words. But so, for example, if you're a big fan of the Honor Harrington series from David Weber, and you want to find all the books where Honor Harrington is, perhaps Honor Harrington is a keyword that they've selected, or In Her Name is a series that Michael Hicks has selected. Here are some keywords, key phrases. Definitely pay attention to this in KDP. Okay, and the last recommendation. The last recommendation, of course, is setting up an author page if you don't have one. Even if you are using a pen name, you absolutely need to set up an author page because it enables you to engage with customer discussions around your book or your authorship. You can connect your Twitter handle to it. You can connect it up to your blog. It can drive traffic to your blog. I'm going to give you an example. I really like the way Michael Hicks uses his. So here's Michael Hicks' author page. He's got a lot of books, and I'll give the screen a chance to refresh as I'm scrolling down. So he's got a lot of books, and one of the things you'll notice about his books as you look at them is that he has 3 or 4 series out there. And for the first book in each series, he's setting the price to 0. He has a sampling strategy. He's giving his whole first ebook away to anyone that will read it for any of his 4 series. And then what happens? They like the characters, they like the world, they like the premise, they like the inciting incident, and they come back and they buy his other books. He's using his Amazon Author Central page to engage with readers. So over here he's got blog posts. He's asking readers, what should I write next? Then at the bottom of your Amazon Author Central book page or author page, here are the customer discussions, right? And here are the discussions that, he's been participating in. So this is where you get your rabid fans. This is where you get the people that will tell 10 people about your book or about you as an author. This is such a valuable page. I recommend everybody do these. Also, if you get a book trailer, throw your book trailer in here. Okay, so let's go back to our final recommendations. Upload a professional-looking book cover. There are 3 or 4 questions you need to ask yourself, ask your book cover designer about your book cover as it's getting created, the things to look for. It's got to convey that you have a professional, competitive book. Build your social proof. Figure out how to use hot links at the end of your book. Work on your reviews. Get yourself to at least 20 before you do any inbound marketing at all, or any outbound marketing. You want your point of sale for your book to have enough social proof so that anybody who comes there won't have any doubt that if they buy this book, they'll enjoy it because other people have as well. Check your price. Experiment with it. Match it up to your marketing goal. Try a sampling strategy. Try a maximum readership strategy. In your book description, make sure you HTML it out. Go look into a logline or a good hook to make your book a compelling impulse buy. In your categories, pick a main category, pick the smallest one that you can dominate. Use your categories to your advantage. Make sure you use key phrases to improve your in-Amazon SEO. Absolutely critical for nonfiction authors. If you're having trouble with your keywords, use the autocomplete feature in Google, or if you have a Google AdWords account, use their keywords tool to help figure out what are the keywords for people that are looking for whatever slice of nonfiction life it is that my book describes. Create that author page. Upload your trailer. Link it out to your blog. Use that as a method for engaging with your audience. My expectation is that as Goodreads gets further integrated into the Amazon world after the acquisition a few months ago, that Amazon author page is going to take on much more importance. You want to get in it now and start building up a history of interacting with your fans. So that's the end of our webinar for tonight. Thank you very much for sticking with me after my almost near failed launch, and I appreciate again Nathaniel speaking up in the question zone. Our next webinar will be out on January 8th. I'm going to have a book cover designer with me. If you're interested in learning more about what makes great book cover design, again, just like we did today, we'll offer that webinar at 11 a.m. and then again at 5 p.m. I would ask you to just take a moment and give me some feedback about what's the next topic you'd like to see. Now, of course, the top topic on this list is the one we're actually going to do on the 8th, but we have some other ones in here as well. We want to be helpful to authors. We want to help. We want to provide value and help you be successful. So if there's a need you have for more information, more education, let me know what it is, and we'll move those higher up in the queue. Fantastic. Thanks again to everyone who voted. I'll show you what the results were. It looks like how to get a professional edit without breaking the bank is an important topic. Just for fun, I'll tell you one of the things, and clearly I'll probably end up doing that one on January the 15th, but if you haven't looked into it and you're looking for some editing help, here's what I tell all of my authors, just sort of the bonus non-relevant tip of the evening. I tell all my authors about a piece of software called, of all things, Editor. And it's sold by a company called Serenity-software.com. We don't get any kickback from them. We're not an affiliate of theirs, but I did ask them if they would do a discount for authors that I send their way, and they will. If you just mention that WaveCloud recommended you to them in your when you purchase Serenity, and I recommend that you purchase their Word plugin. So first of all, what does Serenity do? It is a fantastic proofreading, maybe even line editing, or not line editing, copy editing piece of software that will make a ton of suggestions to you about how to improve your word choice and sentence structure. You'll end up, it'll give you so many recommendations, you'll end up turning some of them off because there are so many there that you can absolutely ignore. And so Editor is a plugin for Microsoft Word, and I recommend that you get the Word. And it only works on the PC, so I'm sorry if you're using the Mac. And Bill Toth actually said, he asks here if I'm familiar with Scrivener. I am familiar with Scrivener. It wasn't clear to me that they've got an editing piece built in, but I do know they work on a Mac very well. But Editor is a great piece of software. It's not very expensive, and every time I tell an author to do it, they have a 10-day free trial, so you can try it on a chapter and see if you like what it does. So, and Bill just replied back. He said that Scrivener does not have an editor tool built in. So this Editor software has a 10-day free trial. Run it on a chapter or two of your book. Make sure you do the tutorial first. I guarantee you it will find things that even your paid proofreaders missed. It's a great piece of software. It's not very expensive, especially with the discount that they might give you if you mention WaveCloud sent you. Oh, sorry. So, yep, great. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining again tonight. I appreciate you sticking with me after my sort of fumbling start. And have a great evening. I hope to see you on the next webinar. Thanks for joining us tonight. Take care.